Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Chai Pe Charcha, second session. Thank you for all the participants who sent a lot of interesting questions this week. I will start with like the last time, there are a lot of interesting questions, some of them humorous and some of them very serious. I will start with the first question here. Online design education is effective or not when compared to classic design education? I think this is what design educators are contemplating for last so many months, that how is it going to shape up. So there are one thing is that we have to embrace change, that the next 6 months or 1 year we are going to be limited to online education. So the challenge is, how do you handle this problem, this new requirement for teaching. Of course, in design education, there are certain subjects which are not very easy to teach in online. For example, pottery or clay modeling or things like that, woodwork or bamboo studio work and things like that. There are some practical limitations to do with online. For example, we have a lot of potter's wheels, and we encourage students to learn pottery using the potter's wheel. So many of these things where the hands are involved and the three-dimensional feel and the touch, sense of touch is involved. Many of those things is very difficult, like weaving, for example. Many of those things are difficult, but we have to find some way of facing this challenge. Many of the other things, theoretical courses and a lot of theory components of practical classes can be taken through online mode. That is not an issue. Only thing is, sometimes it may take some more time than normal to do fine tuning, to for a teacher to look at the work of all 30 students in a batch, suggest some corrections and do it on the spot, or do a demonstration of some equipment or some tool, and then teach the students, and students just sit together and work out on something, or take them out for a walk and do a visit and do a lot of sketching outside. So many of these things have their own limitations, but there is, as educators, I think we need to gear up to the requirements. A lot of this kind of things will happen, changes will happen, and new methods will have to be invented and need to create. So the it is too early stages to stay there, to give an opinion online education is effective or not. Only after a year we will come to know that how effective we have taught the students, and it's like that. The second question, I will club two questions together. There is one question is that why is it that such few good Indic typefaces exist? And in your career as a typographer, have you faced such challenges with lack of Indic typefaces? Why don't we have more Indic typefaces considering India has such a rich history of calligraphy? Okay, so the thing is that font design itself is a very interesting, very special topic, and in a country like India, where we have 22 official languages and more than 13 scripts to handle, and there are lots of unofficial languages and scripts, and our scripts are much more complicated than the English language, the Roman Latin script. So we have a lot of these concepts of matras, consonants and vowels, and we have this matras coming and sitting on top or down or on the side, and there's a lot of these combinations of letter forms, and there are a lot of rules regarding the position of additional component coming onto a letter, and sometimes when you type two letters uh, then there is a substitution happening, and a new visual, new glyph is substituted for in place of word you have typed. So there's a lot of rules are there in Indian languages, and there are a lot of complexities involved. So it is not only to do with design of a font, but then they have to do a lot of things, something called font engineering. That also we are coming to another. There is another person who was asked about that also. So there is a lot of work and there is a lot of teamwork you need, not only to design a font, but after that to make it workable in any Indian language font. The time and the effort and the teamwork and the manpower you need is much more. So, and earlier we already had an issue with different vendors having different keyboards, and one vendor's keyboard will not work with some other vendor. And a lot of this kind of issues. So that is one of the reasons why we don't have enough Indian language typefaces available. In my career as a typographer and a designer, yes, I have faced a lot of issues whenever I design a book in any Indian language, because whenever we design a book, we have to look around for alternatives in text fonts. And so many times when you go and look around, especially after the open type came, the number of fonts available to you is really limited. It is like asking a painter to do a painting with a very limited palette. So you feel very restricted that you have to do with whatever very limited choices you have. Consider compared to English language, whenever you design a book or a brochure or whatever publication design you do in an Indian language, it becomes a big issue that you don't get that kind of choices. Yes, India has a very rich history of calligraphy, and compared to that, we don't have a wide range of. But the last 10 years have been very different, and lot of good, very talented designers have started working in Indian language fonts, and lot of new type foundries have been set up by Indian designers, and lot of good work is happening if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, and very talented young font designers are working in that area. And it is very good that in the next few years' time, we will all have very good. Even now, the things have changed. If you look around, there are a lot of good quality fonts available in Indian languages. Next question is that is design education a must for getting designing jobs in India? What is your advice for students switching from engineering to design? So I personally, the number of opportunities available for example, looking at if you look at the corporates who are looking out for designers, the vacant positions are much more than the number of qualified designers coming out of institutes, universities, and design schools. So I will say that the number of young graduates who are formally educated and trained in design are far less than the number of vacancies available in India and abroad. So, and most of these are filled by the vacancies are filled by uh, people who are interested in design and who have that knack and that knowledge and talent for that rather than having a formal education. But a formal education is always desirable because it will give a more focus and it will give lot of clarity in the process of design and the quality also. Otherwise, when you search alone and then when you search for answers to many questions, you will when you enter into a formal education environment, most of the times you will get the answers much faster than otherwise you get. Advice for students switching from engineering to design, I will suggest that one thing is the mindset has to change. that many of the things you are used to in other fields like engineering or architecture or any other field suddenly changes when you pursue a professional career in design. And in design, one very peculiar feature about design is that many of the things evaluated, how your work is being evaluated, is very subjective rather than objective. So you need to learn how to handle the subjectivity. And in design, the things are the boundaries are not limited. If you look at other subjects, you will see that the many of the things you need to learn and to pursue a career is very well defined and can be kept into inside a boundary. But in design, it is not. And there is a lot of mindset tuning, fine tuning is needed when you go through this transformation from engineering to design. So we have a lot of students who come from engineering background to study design, and they go through. So the first 2 semesters are like designed in such a way that to bring everybody into one common platform. So they go through that kind of a transformation before pursuing a focused academic routine on one subject. Next is that most challenging project and steps involved in overcoming those challenges. So it looks like it's asking me from my experience, most challenging project. Okay, one was that I was designing a magazine, and it was very the first presentation I did and made a dummy and sent it to the editor, and then editor was a good friend of mine, and everybody who saw the dummy liked it a lot. It was very nice and clean and very good, everything proper aligned to a grid and lot of nice white spaces, and it was a very nice design according to me. I thought that it was very good design. So then the editor had a very personal chat with me, and he said, "Gee, this is too nice a design for this kind of a magazine." So that was an informal magazine, and there are a lot of things which are very informal about it. Your this design, what you've done, is very nice, but it is too nice for me. So that is the first time I realized that sometimes a design can be too neat and clean that it doesn't fit into the requirements of a client. Later, once I was designing a magazine for, I think it was, once I was designing a magazine for women, and after the first issue, so that time the client also liked the design a lot, and I had created a very customized font for their headlines and for their masthead and all that. It was looking very neat and clean, and I really liked the whole overall lot of breathing spaces, and the client also liked it. A lot of readers also liked it. But after 1 or 2 months after this redesign launch happened, two, three designer friends told me that if you read the content, it is not very good, very well written. So, and they said that particular magazine didn't deserve such a beautiful design. Sometimes it happens that this is a big challenge that, and once I was designing a customized font, so somebody had come to, they wanted rupee symbol customized for a specific font they were using for a magazine. So they were using four different fonts and with variations and all that. Out of those four fonts, one of them was an ugly font. And they wanted a customized rupee symbol for each one of them. So they wanted a customized rupee symbol for that ugly font also. So I finished all the others very fast. But this one I got stuck because I am not trained to make something uglier and uglier and uglier. So the art director will write to me saying, "Oh, everything else, all the other fonts are all fine, and we have implemented it. But this particular one, whatever you're given, is not ugly enough because all the other characters in that particular font was ugly, and the rupee symbol should look equally ugly." I agreed completely with that. But then I realized my training and the way I am working and the way I teach is I am not equipped to make something ugly. Then I made six variations. The sixth one only came out ugly enough for them to accept it. So it was the most challenging project I ever done in my life. I still remember I had classes at 8:30 in the morning, but those days I used to work till 3:30 because there was only time available to get these things fonts done and up and running. And those magazines that they were using it from 8 point to 12 point to 24 and all that. So you have to be very careful about how every point size, how the rupee symbol will look like. I think that was the most challenging project. Another question next is, Sir, I would love to hear about your experience working in an editorial. How do you deal with short timelines? In a newspaper, I think it is a wonderful learning experience for anybody, any designer. I think I really feel that I was very lucky that as soon, I mean, a few months after I finished my master's here, I got a job in the newspaper. It was a great learning experience on how to manage time and a lot of things about life. First thing is that time is extremely valuable. Whether you are the most creatively, most talented person in the world or not, the last page of the newspaper, there are two pages which, so the in the newspaper pages go one by one. It starts from 4 o'clock and then it goes one by one. And the front page and the last page. Because when you print and open the newspaper, no, the first page and the last, these are the two pages which are sent last. So 12:45 at night, you have to send this to for printing. And if you have a, so I was working on information graphics at that time. The newspaper was the Independent, and another one was the Metropolis on Saturday. So whatever happens, if the infographic is ready or not, if there is an illustration to be done, it is ready or not, if the photograph is ready or not, 12:45 the page has to go. Now, sometimes uh, when you're working in a newspaper, some thing can happen at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, or something has happened at 12 at night or 11. What do? You have only half an hour to do it or 45 minutes to do it. So I had to learn the hard way that somehow you have to make things, you have to create things very fast. And you have to mentally prepare yourself that, how to tell your mind that, this is the deadline, you have to stick to it. So I got trained in that whatever happens, I can finish the work in that much given time. And slowly I learned how to bring quality also in that much of time. So later I was working in a magazine as art director. That time I used to remember that before I joined, they used to tell me that the chief editor of the entire group used to come and sit with our DTP guys, and he used to give them deadlines for each page. And on a specific time, if the page is not ready, he has even marked a blank page and sent, saying editorial didn't give matter on time. So, in any editorial activity, time is very important. So later, I learned. So when I became an art director in the magazines, I interacted a lot with illustrators and photographers. So I used to tell all illustrators, give me version 1 of whatever you do and put it into the page. After it is imported into a page, you keep on reworking on it and you can refresh it every 15 minutes or half an hour. So whenever a deadline comes, we have something to send. So then I looked at the way psychology works. So in any creative exercise, I have, in my experience, I have not come across any creative person who says, I have given the best shot. Now I can't improve my creation. No. So whatever I do, I used to feel earlier that okay, 10 more minutes or half a day more, I would have improved my output and out. But after my experience in an editorial, I realized that okay, I have given my best shot. Now this is it. I don't want to do anything more than this. So somewhere you have to draw a line. So nowadays in my professional life, whenever I do consultancy jobs, I give this much of time, 16 hours or 24 man hours or 48 man hours or whatever. So roughly I give 10 to 12 working hours to make a book cover design, for example. So luckily the experience in an editorial trained me to work and give the best possible output in a definite time. Once, the editor of a newspaper told me that one of my graphics went late by 15 minutes. But by that time, the deadlines were all crossed. And it was very important graphic that they had to carry it because it was something which happened late night or something like that. Then that newspaper, which was supposed to go to some other city after printing, it missed the train and they had to book trucks to carry the newspaper from one city to another. And the cascading effect was lakhs of rupees was wasted on that particular, just because one graphic went late. That changed my life. I realized that come what may, you have to finish your work on time. So nowadays, lot of people say that why the work is bad because I didn't get time. So the idea is that we have this emotional mind and logical mind. So whenever we do some work, at the end of it, the emotional side will always tell one more day to look better. But somewhere we need to control the thing and find a balance. Logical mind will say, this is a deadline. Deadline has come. It is time for you to finish and send the work to your client. So we are always in this conflict. So my advice to all design students is that train yourself to listen to the logical mind because the emotional mind will never agree that this is time for you to finish and give. So a lot of assignments will keep on getting pending and pending and that, and at the end of the semester, you won't have any time to even think about what to do. Very interesting question. What role meditation can play in the life of a designer? So, uh, in Indian philosophy, there is step-by-step process given about solving a design problem, or to and how the form evolves from the formless. So, in that, a lot of things are written about meditation. I am not an expert in meditation, but I firmly believe that meditation plays a very important role in the life of a designer, and it keeps you grounded and gives you much focus in what you are trying to do. But whatever I have learned is that during a design problem solving process also meditation helps a lot. So one step which I follow in any design solving process is you articulate all the essential requirements of the final product. For example, you are designing a mouse, a new mouse. Just list down what are the desirable qualities of a very good mouse for working on a computer. Once your this articulation is done, and once you have studied all the mice available and you studied all the other things about human computer interaction and all the other things, and there is a thing that in Indian philosophy it is mentioned that you meditate on the articulated the list of essential qualities of the end product. If you do that, it is said that the form will emerge itself. So, in design process also, the role of meditation is very important. As a human being, like anyone else, a designer will benefit a lot from meditation. That is what I feel. But it is a very interesting question, and I'm happy that somebody asked this question. The next is the more very, very uh, important and very fascinating topic to me. Why is Comic Sans still in use by ordinary humans? It is very unpleasant. What are the alternatives to for this font? So in every typography class, I have this discussion about Arial, Comic Sans, fonts like that. So why is Comic Sans still in use means the non-designers, whenever they want to give an informal look to it, a children's party or a birthday party or a poster saying they will make cakes or things like that. There is an unfortunate misunderstanding among people that Comic Sans will fit into it and anything to do with children and all that is very interesting and all that. For a visually sensitive person, for a designer, it looks might look very ugly and bad looking phone. So, if you go to, there are a lot of resources for royalty free, open source fonts. So, for example, Google Fonts is one resource where you can see, have a lot of fonts which are free to use. There is no license fee. In the Google fonts also there are wonderful, there are a lot of interesting fonts in handwriting font section where many of them can be used in a place of Comic Sans. But professionally, if you look at fonts which you can buy and use, my all-time favorite is a font called DOM Casual, DOM Casual. So I have used it in many of my professional projects. I have purchased that font so many times. It is very, very interesting font. It is much, much better looking than Comic Sans. I will give another interesting snippet here that there is a font with the name I Hate Comic Sans. So you should have a look at that also. Maybe it is designed by people who hated Comic Sans, but I found it very interesting name that I Hate Comic Sans is the name of a font. Precautions to be taken while using any font for the logo or as a logo. So, first precaution is that before you decide on the font, ask yourself the visual attributes, the quality of the font, the visual impact of the font, if there is any grammar and if there is any emotional value to it. Does it match the requirements of the logo which you are trying to? What is the meaning of the logo, or what is the context? What kind of products and what is the feeling you want to convey? So that is one thing I will say precaution. Another is very important legal precaution that do you have a license copy of that? If you don't have, and if you use something a friend of yours gave you, and you design a logo and that is used all over the world for some organization, the font vendor can take you to court. So that is one precaution I always ask all my clients to. buy all the fonts they use, and they are the legal copyright owners of that font. So there should not be any issue with any legal matters. So some font vendors say that if it is a magazine, you should have minimum 10 licenses. If you are a newspaper, you should have 10 licenses, like that. So each the condition terms and conditions of each vendor or font vendor also changes. So you have to be careful about whether you are having a license of the font or not. Another question next one is it necessary for a student to have a strict aim, objective, and purpose like other areas in design while doing an Indic type design project? Whether you are doing a type design project or not, a good aim, objective, and purpose will always help a student. By the end of if it is a master's program, 4 semesters, by the end of the fourth semester, if you feel that you don't have any aim and you do not focus, and I personally feel that it is not a good idea. So maybe even if you are in design or not, or whether you are designing a Indic typeface or not, but I'm not saying strict aim, but some clarity in what you want to do will help. That is what I personally feel. Next question is font engineering is a rather important part that comes after the font design process. Do you think design schools should give more importance and start focusing on font engineering more? It is a good idea that after a font is designed, it takes a lot of time for the another team of font engineers to work on the engineering aspect, the computer related, the software related issues of a font, how the font will appear on the screen, how all the combinations will work, what are the spacing set, and if two characters are typed together, what should be a conjunct, what should come. So it is a very important thing, but I think the student should be given a choice whether to do. But if a student does that, it is very well, it should be appreciated. And I think time has come. Yes, I agree that design schools should introduce this as a topic so that, after designing a font, a student can do much more work. But it is always a teamwork. Oh, it is very difficult for a person to do it alone. But still, the basic fundamentals of font engineering must be included in the curriculum. Yes. And with reference to Indian language fonts, it is very important. How do you tackle the complexities and rules of Indian language type composing? That is very important. So that is again related to another question here: how to kern Devanagari letter form. So there is not much of a documented process here, but it is very important that after the font is done, we make kerning pairs and we make a table for font glyph substitution and glyph positioning, and there are a lot of this kind of work happens. So it is very difficult to answer in such a short time how to kern the Devanagari letter. There is a lot of things you have to take. There are a lot of hundreds of parameters you need to take care of. And what are the open type features we are looking at? What are the matras involved? And how many components of different uh, consonants and vowels are coming together? All these things you have to be taken into consideration when we think about kerning any language. So the kerning rules and of every language, every script has very different. So a font designer has to understand all that, and font engineering team, along with the font designer, has to look at all these things and do this. How type appropriateness gets challenging due to options of many fonts and style manifestations. How should students, practitioners, should handle this in case of constraint driven client projects? Okay, so the appropriateness of font is a very, very interesting topic and it is getting challenging because there are lots of options. So if you look at Roman script, you have maybe lakhs of fonts available, and designers go through this thing of spending so much of time. It is like an ocean, uh, searching for the right font, and then the thing is, how do we handle this? Is that I always feel that if you understand the content really well, and if you go deep into the content, then this appropriateness or the number of too many fonts available to you will not come into become any problem at all. So you should even look at the way a lot of designers, including so all the students of many students of Emil Ruder from the Basel school, many of them had a very limited number of fonts to choose from. I mean, they deliberately focused on only one font family or one or two, and their entire life, their portfolio was made of one or two fonts, but they used all the variations of that. You will find a lot of designers at that time, they used that universe family a lot, and that is it. That all their work could be done through that. So the overdose of fonts available is not such a big problem if you are aware of the content, and if you have understood the content and you have a very deep relationship with the content what you are trying to communicate. Then comes I will go to another question. Why do people think professional work is those so do minimalist work or following straight line alignment and perfection in English? What should a designer do if he feels that they are getting underpaid, but then the work they are designing is stimulating and the owner is kind of exploit? So these are issues. Your question is not very clear, and I would prefer to have a detailed chat on the exact problem. I couldn't understand exactly what is the problem. Another interesting question a student has asked is a student who is going into a master's program is asking that how can one stay focused and not get distracted? So one thing is that somewhere we have to draw a line. There are certain practical requirements when you are studying. Uh, so it is very easy for a student to get distracted because there are a lot of things happening around. But the ground reality is that you have to study a number of courses. You have to pass each one and finish the pass the semester. Like that, you have to do four times to get a degree and to get a whatever job or build your career. So some kind of a focus and some kind of a mental clarity is very important. It's the willpower is very important. That how to handle this thing of there are so many distractions and how to stay focused. There are a lot of student counselors who are trained in counseling such problems, and I think you should meet some of them if you feel that it is a big problem. But since it is written at a time when you are about to start a program, you have to enter into, you are becoming a student, you just got admission in MDE, in a master's program. I think you wait for a month, start attending all the classes, and see how other things are distracting you or how you're because sometimes in many design schools the kind of work is so uh, the overloaded that sometimes you might not get enough time, any chance to get distracted. I got an interesting question here. Why is Calibri the poor man's Helvetica? I will not say that because okay, both are good fonts. I will not say one is ugly or the other, but I don't think we should compare fonts like that because Helvetica has a very different kind of a visual grammar. Calibri has got rounded corners, bevels, and it has got a very different look and feel. So it is very difficult to say that Calibri is poor man's Helvetica. You should see Calibri as it is, and you should see Helvetica as it is. Let them be. Let us not go into comparing an apple with a banana. Let them be. Helvetica is a very different kind of a font designed at a different time, and it was used and used and used for a long time. There was a lot of time when designers started and ended with Helvetica. That time was also gone. So, my personal opinion is that I don't subscribe to this thing of something is poor man somebody like that. So, okay, another question is that what is your favorite typeface? Universe is my all-time favorite. Nowadays, I like this font called Merriweather. It is very nice, open source font from Google. I like the font. The serif font and sans serif also is there. But Universe is my all-time favorite. I like Optima a lot, Palatino a lot. I am a big fan of Herman Sam, and I am a big fan of Artian Frutiger also. I like Meridian a lot, and I am a big fan of Stone Serif. So there's a long list of fonts which are there is a long list of my favorite fonts. Another question somebody is asking is that how do you identify so many fonts? I think it is a question of experience and you start observing things. So, like human beings, how do you identify human faces? So, you can remember, okay, this person's nose is big, or ears are this way, or the eyebrows are this way, like that. We remember human faces with specific features which we remember for a long time. Like that, not only me, I think a lot of other designers also do that. That there are a lot of designers who can identify 500 fonts and all that. So I think once you get accustomed to fonts, I think it will happen. Like Sajid Moinuddin is one of the people who are chatting. His father, I was trained under him, MG Moinuddin. He could identify maybe 1,000 fonts. So he could look at a newspaper, look at a body copy and say, okay, this is Nimrod or this is Meridian, like that. So it comes with experience and the sincere attempt at observing fonts. So I will wind up now. I was planning for a 45 minutes interaction. I want to thank all everyone who has participated in this through Google Forms as well as this. One thing again I want to tell you is that the sending questions through the Google form is much more convenient for me to read and prepare for the answers. And it was a bit difficult to look at the live comments and answer them. And I am very thankful to everybody who gave feedback for the previous session and did a lot of sharing of the video. And thanks to everyone who sent their questions. It was a good experience answering them as well as looking at your preference, most of them preferred a Friday 4 to 5 p.m. Slot. So we will stick to that. And I will wind up here. Thank you very much.